said, are you aware of what my power can do in that same entrance into the bone? I said, yes. He said, stay aware. Then he said, are you aware that cancer can creep into the cell and steal and kill and destroy? I said, yes. He said, don't stop there. Are you aware of what my provision can do in that cell? I said, yes. He said, stay aware. He said, are you aware of what Alzheimer's can do to a portion of the brain? The destruction and chaos in relationships in an entire lifetime, what it can do? I said, yes. He said, don't stop there. Are you aware of what one touch on that brain portion can do if it's my touch? I said, yes. He said, stay aware. I'm telling y'all what he is saying. He is preparing us to be aware of what he's about to do. He's telling us to be aware of a dimension of God that I'm going to have to call sovereign surprises. Because last night convinced me that God is at a threshold of doing sovereign surprises. We get caught up in the flow, in the power, in the rejoicing, in the gratitude of it. But we're about to see God be God, and what he's saying to us is stay aware. If you hear the bad report, if you get the bad report, don't stop there. Yes. Stay aware of what God's will is. That ain't it. Yes. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you. That was 2 streets past awesome. Thank you, God. Ooh. I mean, this ushered us into a dimension. Yes. I haven't heard Marty sing like that, and I don't know how long. My Lord. We have entered a dimension, y'all. Yes. And I'm telling you, it's different. It's not, I started to say a season. No, it's not a season. It's not an era. It's a dimension. Yes. And it overrides anything that we call time. Yes. And any lines we've got drawn. I love that. God does not color in the lines. And he won't do that. We have entered, and what I saw tonight about a dimension was, what he's doing is extending our boundaries. Yes. He's not destroying them, he's extending them. Yes. I mean, to a point where, and what it boils down to for us is, he is extending our paradigms, he's extending our formats, our means, and our methods. Yes. He's not throwing them all down the drain. Yes. He's extending them in a way that we did not expect, yes. In a way that's going to be pure life in a whole new dimension. Yes. So be it. So be it. I receive it.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Whoa. Hallelujah.
Last night we talked about contradictions on the porch, and we were talking about overcoming the personal conflicts in our own soul and the wars that are within us because of the conflicts and the contradictions. But tonight I want to talk about a different battle, and what I call this is threshold wars. And I'm talking about enemies coming at us from outside, enemies determined to come at us, and enemies that you're not expecting show up. You may have never had that enemy before, and there it is. And I'm not going to say that. These are the ones coming at us, and we've got to learn to fight these wars. And I think that's my philosophy of life. The only reason to go to war is to win.
Amen.
That's the only reason.
Amen.
Otherwise, don't draft me, don't call me. I'm not volunteering. If we can't win, I'm not coming.
Amen.
And that's the only reason. But the enemy coming at you, this is stuff that's outside of us. It's not even on our radar. It's nothing we're doing to cause it. He's coming at us. When it's like this, the scripture has been a theme scripture in my whole life. Learned it in VBS when I was 9 years old. That 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, or be alert and stay aware.
Come on.
Be alert and stay aware, because your adversary, your opponent in a lawsuit is what that means. That cunning, crafty lawyer that will go to any man. He has no morals, no standards. He will do anything he can. And he's walking about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Now, when this lion is on, when he's in the jungle, he's not a problem. When a lion's on your porch, that's a problem.
Yes.
When he's targeting you, that's a problem.
Yes, it is.
And that's what I'm talking about in a threshold war tonight. Because it's possible that you are in one right now, or you've been in many and didn't even know to call it that. But what I mean by threshold war is if you're feeling confused and wondering if all the opposition that's heated, so hot, coming at you, if you're thinking, God, is this a red light and you're telling me not to move and be still? Or is this a threat or a dare from the devil that I need to defeat? I mean, if you're feeling that kind of confusion, you're very likely in a threshold war. Or if you're lying in your bed at night, sleepless and desperately saying, Lord, are you stretching my borders, or is the devil just trying to kill me? And God says, yes. You are definitely in a threshold war then. But the definition of threshold, I love it. Threshold simply means a point of change or a beginning place.
Amen.
So you can have 50 thresholds between here and Houston for different reasons. A threshold is a beginning place or a point of change. Now, whether it's a threshold on a project, an obedience, a career, at your home, your business, your relationships, your finances, wherever there's an opportunity for change, wherever there's an opportunity for a beginning, that's a threshold. And like Paul put it in 1 Corinthians 16, he said, a great door, an opportunity opens.
Amen.
Or is opening to me. And I'll tell you this, if that's the case, go ahead and brace yourself for mushrooming opposition.
Yes, amen.
Especially if it's a God opportunity.
Amen.
Especially. And Paul explained it in verse 9 when he said a wide door of opportunity. Boy, that sounded southern. A wide door of opportunity, and I'm in it. It was open to me, but there are many adversaries. Paul explained it very in detail. And an adversary is somebody or something that opposes you, resists you, and sets itself against you. Now, your adversary, the devil, walks around. That's him. But his whole point is to thwart you as you move toward change or a beginning.
Yeah.
That's his whole stopping you in your tracks. I mean, he gets, that's what he desires at breakfast, and he's on it till he's back at breakfast. The devil will set himself against you. Now, here's the good thing. He doesn't have the authority to shut a door that God opens.
That's right. Amen.
He knows that. He's not totally stupid. He's just obnoxiously determined. And he knows he cannot shut a door that God opens when it's into his plan and purpose. So you know what he does? He sets himself against you personally, the promised seed. That's his only hope, is for you to fail to go through the door that God's opening.
Amen.
And so that's exactly what he goes after. So he starts with harassment, delay, deception. He'll disqualify you with condemnation if it's possible at all. You can't do that. You can't do that. There's some people he can say that to and they believe him. That's the last thing you want to say to other people, because that will set them on fire. Don't you tell me what I can do.
There you go.
I mean, there's just different kinds of people. He'll try different things.
Amen.
But all of this, though, is because he wants you to stay still, because you're at a place where your steps are fixing to make a difference. That's the only time he fights us this hard, y'all. When he starts a threshold war, it's because he absolutely is determined to stop you taking the ground that you are right on the verge of taking. Now, this is how we know. That's the only thing about this threshold wars is the threshold word. Wars, again, wear you out, but threshold means it's the beginning, it's the point of change. And he'll set himself there. What are the tactics to look for in a threshold war? It could be tension in relationships on Monday. It could be pressure under circumstances on Tuesday. Or it can be stresses in your finances on Wednesday, guerrilla warfare with accusation or injustice by Friday, and even blatant attacks on your mind, your emotions, and your body, or all of the above any given day. He'll do anything he can. There's no He holds back. You know, Joseph saw God's plans for him in a dream. But at the threshold, at the beginning place of his journey to the palace, what was the first war? The first threshold war he had to deal with was a betrayal. His own brothers sold him into slavery. Now, I could give you a list of people that betrayal has been like a hound dog dogging them. I mean, we have seen it. It's like a pattern. It's constant. I mean, we know a pastor that every associate he ever had split the church and took half of it with him every time he went on vacation.
Yep.
We told him either you quit picking Absalom associates or quit taking vacations. I don't know what you need to do. But this is some simple advice if you want to hear it. But it was a pattern of war. And, you know, if that church would get to where it was going someplace, and at that threshold, here it would go again.
There it is.
Joseph's second threshold war was with false accusation, Potiphar's wife. I'm telling you, he'll strike with accusation. Melissa didn't get to speak on that this morning. I don't know if she will, but it's a powerful buildup against us. It's great resistance.
Yeah.
His third war of Joseph was when the cupbearer forgot to mention him to Pharaoh. You know what Joseph was battling then in that threshold point? He was battling timing and delay. I hate that one. A BB gun won't even do you any good when it's against timing and delay.
Come on.
I hate that one. I mean, T-I-M-E is a 4-letter word. It always has been to me, and it's nasty. I don't like it. I like the 3-letter word now.
Yeah.
But Joseph had a war at the threshold. He could. This was all just getting to the palace, y'all. How many wars Joseph went through?
Yes.
Because of the resistance at each point of change. Now, the intent of an adversary that positions at a threshold, he intends to make that threshold your limitation. Here and no more. So you can't get beyond that. You just remain where you are and who you are, and he'll leave you alone.
Say it.
I mean, if he leaves you alone, you better check what's going on.
That's so true.
The norm is he won't leave you alone. But you just stay there and you just be passive about it. You never have ownership of your destiny. You never have success or fulfillment of your purpose.
Say it.
Just be still. Don't try to cross this line. Talk about a line in the sand. He's got no authority to do that. But he does it every day of the world.
Yes.
So you just live in passive agreement. You never make a difference and that God intended. You never make the difference you were born to make. Now see, that right there explains what fulfillment is. We should have fulfillment continually through our lives. You know what it is? It's doing what you were born to do. Do you know that your fulfillment brings glory to your God? When you do what you were born to do, God is glorified through your lifetime. So he'll rob you of that if he can. But the war with opposition at a threshold can vary in its degrees of ferocity. If you're over 5 years old, I'm sure you have figured that out. Sometimes all your enemy has to do is show up. Just because there's opposition out there, we don't step across the threshold.
Come on.
I mean, there are some, when the first time I went to New York City, I was on vacation. I mean, Melissa and I just went with my brother to go to a seminar at the University of New York. I mean, I was on vacation. Dear God, I wanted to get on the plane back to Texas before midnight that night we got there. I said, Lord, I didn't come here to fight these people's devils. I don't care what happens to these people now. I just want to go home and fight the devils I know. And it was like, I don't take on war voluntarily.
That's it.
I need to know it's God because it takes too much out of me, and I'm going to give it my all if it's God. But otherwise, I don't want to waste my energy. So sometimes all he has to do is show up, and we won't even cross over the threshold. Sometimes all our adversary has to do is be taller, and because it's intimidating, we think it's common sense to stay in the house.
Wow.
It sounds common sense, you know. But sometimes all he has to do is outlast us. We get too tired to persevere. I hate that one too. Sometimes all he has to do is be louder. If he can rattle the windows loud enough with a roar, we can freeze in fear and die in place. Literally.
Wow.
Literally die in place. But if we're going to battle this lion, this adversary wisely, at these points of change and at this place of beginning that are appointed to us, we're going to have to realize that no matter what he attempts or threatens, he can only devour what we allow to be devoured. Now, this is something we need to know. This is like the secret weapon to keep in your pocket. He wants you to think he can devour you. That's what all the intimidation is about. But he wouldn't walk around seeking whom he may devour if he could just gulp you down if you took his fancy. He's not all powerful. No, I mean, you know, that snake in the garden in Eden that's a dragon by the time you get to Revelation, you're thinking, this is that little grass snake. And that's honestly, he's not a dragon to be afraid of. All this is what man has allowed and man has believed.
That's it. There you go.
We do not have to be devourable. We can get in a devourable state, and if we do, he'll eat us for lunch, because we become lion's food when we take off the armor of God, and we get disillusioned, fearful, grieved, frustrated, regretful, aggravated, worried, or hopeless, or mouthy, or murmurous. If you check murmuring in the Bible, it's right up there with the big sins.
Come on.
I won't go over the list. But I'll tell you this, everything I just named is understandable. We have all felt every one of those.
Yes.
It's understandable, but the problem is it still makes you edible. There's the real problem. You don't want to be edible. I don't want to be lion's food. And do you hear the common thread in all those things I named? They're an emotional reaction to life and circumstances.
There it is.
And see, that's why it's understandable, because we all have emotions, even if you don't look like you ever have one. Then you do have it. But this cunning lion has no success unless we emotionally or psychologically bow to his roar. And or we get in agreement with his agenda through murmuring. My word, this is such a power weapon right here, y'all. This mouth. We, with our own mouths, can fill the atmosphere with fear. And fear carries a stench that your enemy can smell from a mile away. And if he wasn't on your porch, when he smells fear, he'll be there.
Yes,
and if he was on the porch, he goes in for the kill.
Come on, say
Because fear makes you edible. Y'all remember that. I've never said that. Fear makes you edible. It does. Because it makes you fear the enemy. It gives agreement. Fear is a form of agreement, y'all.
Yes, it is.
With what could happen or what is trying to happen. But that's why we have to remember our mouths can will prep us, skin us, marinate us, and cook us like a pork loin. And he just has to sit down and eat. Your mouth will prep you to be devoured. That's why we've got another reason we have to be sober and vigilant, not just to watch for him. We've got to be sober and vigilant, alert and aware of what we're doing, that we do not become edible. And we got to outwit him so he does not get the reaction he wants with every move he makes on the chessboard. Let's put it this way. We're going to have to guard our buttons because he's going to punch them. I had a good friend ask me one day, she said, Kathy, can the devil read my mind? I mean, this is a seasoned minister. I've known her all my life practically. Can the devil read my mind? I said, well, no, but he can sure read you. I can. I can't read your mind, but I know what you're going to do because I've learned what your buttons are. And he's watched you until he's learned how to punch your buttons and get the reaction he wants. Many times I'm so aggravated that opposition even showed up again on my porch that emotion has me by the nose hair and dragging me around before I think twice. And I'm getting my boots and my gun, and he hadn't even made a move yet, but it aggravated me that he even showed up. That the opposition even showed up. And I'm pretty sure that my adversary has figured out by now that a long time ago that if he could bait me, and he can bait me by pushing "Don't you try to bully me" button. He can bait me into battles that were not on the chart for the path. They're not on God's GPS. But I'm in the middle of it and swinging, and blood and sweat's going everywhere before I even think twice, because he knew what button to push. And then by the time I really get to a threshold war, I'm too fatigued to even try it.
Come on, say it, Kathy.
Now, I know he's learned that about me, and I'm figuring out how to get around that. I'm not there yet, but I'm figuring. Now, then, what I have just given you is 3 keys for dealing with threshold wars. 1 is don't trip over your emotions. 2 is don't trip over your mouth.
Come on.
And 3 is don't trip over your buttons. That's 3 keys. But you know what? Even if you have those 3 keys in your pocket, you can still react first and reach for them later if you ever reach for them at all. I'm not going to tell y'all how I know that. You can suddenly stumble into depression. You can just wake up discouraged for the day. We were talking with someone today. It was you can wake up so discouraged you don't want to get out of bed. You don't even know why, really. It's already all poured in, and it's an emotional reaction to something. Yeah. Or you can feel completely, obsessively compelled to murmur. I mean, y'all, I'm going to confess to you, there have been times I thought, if I don't say how I feel about this, and if I don't just tell them what I'm thinking, I'm going to explode all over everybody in this room. They're going to have Kathy shrapnel, anybody in 10 feet radius. So for their sakes, I'm going to let it out.
Come on.
I'm going to tell you what I think about this.
Come on.
Now, see, Marty's probably surprised. He never knew I held anything back. or he and Melissa just kind of roll their eyes and walk into their respective places. But the reality is, with those keys in your pocket, you can still react and never reach for them. And if that happens, okay, I'll give you an example. You ever had somebody just ask a question that just set off World War III?
Yes.
I had just gotten to work one morning, and the phone rings, and the high school Melissa's in says, "Why isn't Melissa at school today?" I said, "What do you mean? I just dropped her off and came to work." She said, "Well, she's not in homeroom." I said, "Well, where is she?" She said, "Well, maybe she skipped." I said, "My daughter doesn't skip classes." She said, "Well, maybe she went to the nurse." I said, "She wasn't sick." I said, "You go call that nurse and you see if she's there and you call me right back." What a way to start the day. By the time the lady called back, my panic button was stuck on.
Come on. Come on, girl. Say it.
Because I'd already come to the conclusion the only reason Melissa wouldn't be where she's supposed to be is a drug dealer had skulked into that school and kidnapped her.
Come on, there you go.
Now, they couldn't figure that out that quick, but I could. So the lady calls me back. Hey, it was a matter of 2-3 minutes. She called me back. It doesn't take long. You push a panic button and keep it on. So when the lady called back, she said, "Oh, Miss Gabler, they sent in the wrong student card." And her relief didn't faze me one iota. She thought this is taken care of. She had the wrong record. She said, "It's all right." I said, "I need to see my daughter. Go find her wherever she is. Tell her to be out front. I'm coming to get her." She said, "Well, Mrs. Gabler, I don't know why you're so upset." I said, "It's not important to me what you're worried about. Go get your daughter and tell her to be out front because I need to get her." Poor Melissa comes out in tears thinking something awful has happened. But no, it was just Princess Panic here who was acting like lion's food. I mean, how can a moment, y'all, and a phone call and a question cause you to forget the keys in your pocket, cause you to forget you're a daughter or a son of God, cause you to forget that you're covered with His feathers and you're under His wing? How can just a question set all that off and make you lion's food? Sometimes all our enemy has to do is cast a shadow at the window, and what happens is it reminds us of an old battle and the experience we had, and we doubt it can turn out any other way. No, you can't blame that on the devil. That is all right here, but that's the reaction, and he wins before you even lift a foot to step over the threshold because he just reminded you of a war or a defeat. I mean, it is subtle what can set us off. But wars and conflicts are supposed to produce character strength. If you read Romans 5, that's what conflict and trouble and tribulation is supposed to do, is push us and build muscle in the character, and so that we endure these threshold battles and we don't get bent out of shape and have a negative view of life. That's not what they're about. If we're dreading the future, If we come through a hellacious situation and we're just standing there dreading the future, we did not win that battle, guys.
Come on.
We lost it.
Come on.
And now we got to, that threshold's yet to be conquered.
Come on.
Character comes from the root word that means to scrape, to cut, to engrave. All you can say is ouch.
Yeah.
Character's carved out through conflict and war. Genuine godly character doesn't produce panic either. If you read there in Romans 5, genuine godly character doesn't produce dread. It produces, of all things, hope.
Come on.
I mean, is there anything logical in that statement? It's not logical, but it's true. True character produces hope. And I'll tell you a little secret here. It's because we think of hope as a wish, a fantasy, a relief moment where we're imagining something and we come to a hope. No. Hope is one of the most basic, nitty-gritty, strong choices you'll ever make in your life. Hoping is a choice. If you're going to hope in the Lord, it's a choice. And all of us have nasty cuts from past battles, but we can either see them as ugly scars, or we can see them as the process of getting character muscle and enough muscle to choose to be a victor instead of a victim. That's a choice.
Come on.
It honestly is, and I'm not saying we're not genuinely victim of things, but we can either live there or we can choose to be the victor. And that we have enough muscle then to choose hope. And I'm talking about hope in the Lord. And choosing hope no matter what comes from strong character. Choosing hope isn't enough. Choosing hope no matter what. That's choosing. I'm going to read to you, if you'll let me read, because I like to mix up the versions according to what the verse says. I like to read it the way I like to read it. And so I mix it up. Might confuse you, but I'm going to read to you about a woman who, she had a threshold war right on her own front porch, came right to her house, but she chose and placed her hope where it would make a difference in her life and her legacy. I'll read it to you. And this is Elisha went to the woman, a great woman, it says, in Shunem. And this Shunammite woman and her husband built him a chamber up on the top of their house where he could stay when he was passing through. One day he calls her, and he wants to bless her for her generosity and her hospitality. And he says, can I fix it a political positioning for you in this area? She said, no, I'm content with the way my lifestyle is. I don't want to get involved in that. And so Elisha is talking to his servant, good old boy Gehazi. You have to keep an eye on Gehazi. I'm just warning you now when you read about him. And Gehazi said, well, what do you think we should do? He said, well, she doesn't have a child and her husband's old. That'd be great. I mean, don't you love the idea? Let's think of a miracle to give to this woman. And Elisha called her. She stood in the doorway. He said, okay, at this season, according to the time of life, the 9 months that it takes, then you're going to have a son. And this is what she says. No, my Lord, man of God. I mean, basically she was saying, don't play games with me and tease me with such fantasies. She had trouble receiving that promise, okay? But she did, and she managed to cross the first threshold to a place of beginning. And sure enough, she conceived and bore a son that season the following year. And when the child had grown, the boy went out one day to his father with the reapers. Now, I'm going to slow down here a minute. That's just 5 words. When the child had grown. We need to understand how much investment is in those words. When that child, after wearing out 3 wet nurses with 286 2 a.m. feedings, and after 3,328 diaper changes, and after 85 sleepless nights of colic and teething and growth spurt leg cramps, and after 2,844 nerve-wracking lessons in the Torah, right in the middle of preparation for the grandest bar mitzvah this side of the Jordan for the apple of the eye of 2 doting parents who were already fully vested and established in parenthood and purpose, the boy went out one day to his father with the reapers. And the boy said to his father, Daddy, my head hurts. The man had turned to his servant and said, take him back to his mama. Smart move. And when he was brought to his mama, he sat on her knees till noon and then died. Now that all seemed to happen so fast, but if he went out with the reapers, he went early. It was at least 5 or 6 hours. She had been rocking him on her lap, and she sat there helpless while the promise was slipping away from her. But as she rocked, she was contemplating her situation. Technically, the promise was fulfilled. He was there in her arms. But the huge door of parenting had been opened to her. An effectual door for generations to come, and joy in old age and all that it carries with it. And suddenly she couldn't sit there like a helpless victim. God sent Elisha with hope for the first change she went through. And she lifted her head and decided, I'm going to hope again. She chose to hope again. And so she marched outside, climbed down the stairs, laid her son on the bed, climbed up the stairs, laid her son on the bed of the man of God, and shut the door upon him and went out. She didn't tell a soul. She took care of that. They were all out still in the fields. Then she calls her husband and says, send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come back again. And her husband said, what's today? It's not a new moon, a Sabbath, no special day. Why are you going today to the man of God? And all she said was, it will be all right. This woman was guarding her hope, y'all.
Come on.
And that's a wise thing to do.
Wow.
She saddled the donkey. She wasn't wasting any time. She saddled the donkey and said to her servant, now you lead on, you ride fast, don't slacken your pace unless I tell you. What she was saying is, unless you turn around and see I've only got one foot in the stirrup and that donkey's dragging me, you better not slow down. She was on a mission. So she set out, came to the man of God at Mount Carmel, and when he saw her, he said, there's the Shunammite woman. He sent good old Gehazi, go find out, ask her, are you okay? Is your husband okay? Is your son okay? And you know what her answer was? All is well. Why? Because this was not about her family's present condition. This was about the change she came for. This woman was focused. And there's a little hint for us during a threshold war. There's a second wind during war if you'll change your focus. That's a wise move. When she came to the mountain, she went to the man of God and clung to his feet. But good old Gehazi came to thrust her away. I mean, anybody can lapse into stupid. But Gehazi was eating up with it. And it wasn't the first time. And you read about it, it wasn't the first time. But it was nearly his last. I mean, even Elisha said, let her alone. Can't you see she's enraged in her soul? And the Lord has hid it from me, Elisha said. And I thought, why had God not told Elisha about this situation? I believe it was because this was the Shunammite's war with the adversary on her porch. It wasn't Elisha's war this time. It wasn't about another prophecy. This was a war in the Shunammite's porch. Her threshold, her point of change again. And then she said, did I desire a son of my Lord? I mean, she's got an attitude. She has kept it to herself all this time. Well, here it is. She said, did I desire this? Did I start all this, Elisha? Didn't I tell you not to give me a false hope and cause me to have fantasies that would never be true? I mean, she laid it all out there. And she said, parenting wasn't my idea, Elisha, but she went ahead and finished it. It was a beginning place deeded to me by God, and it wasn't a temporary change. And she laid her case out there. Elisha, something's got to be done. So he says, turns to Gehazi and says, here, take my staff and go lay this on the child's face. If you meet any man, do not salute him. And if he salutes you, don't answer him. Don't dilly-dally and don't talk to anybody. Gehazi. The mother of the child turns and says, as the Lord lives and as my soul lives, I'm not going to leave you, Elisha. You can send your servant and your stick wherever you want to. But I know who brought hope to my threshold the first time. And I know where that authority is, and I ain't leaving until that same authority comes and restores the hope that is mine by God.
Come on.
And so that was so. But look at this, y'all. I have never seen this until today. I love that story, but had never seen. Look, her adversary brought his big guns and came after her son. Now, she had to face off with death itself. But it didn't stop there. She had to fight agreement. She took that boy and hid him. Nobody even knew what had happened because she didn't want anybody agreeing with the condition and the death that had come to her house. She went and hid that. She was going to take care of it a different way. She faced off with the logistics of getting on a donkey and riding like the wind. That couldn't have been fun. But she faced off with that. And once she was there, it still wasn't over. She had to fight off Elisha, delegating the task to somebody who might or might not get it done. If he had to tell the man, don't talk to anybody, he was having to convince Gehazi this was urgent. You don't want him tending to this when your boy's waiting on life. Look at what it was one thing after another this lady had to face off with a very cunning adversary, and she had to fight off adversarial maneuvers every inch of the way across a threshold at this point of change. Now, your adversary in threshold wars is going to fight dirty. Yep. He's going to fight persistently. He's not going to let up. He's going to double down with injustice, accusation, or absurdities. There's nothing I hate any more than absurdities. You can't even reason with absurd thinking and absurd people. That's why I don't watch the news. You can't reason with absurdity. And he'll send harassment, frustration, irritations, even pain and physical attacks. He will fight dirty. And he's attempting to totally strangle hope out of you so you stop and die right there. Because he'll do this. He'll surround you with changelessness to the point that he blocks your supply lines. He will cause interference in everything from the U.S. mail to the weather. Just to thwart you. We've had it. Yeah. Melissa got a prophetic gift. Dana sent her, a good friend, for her birthday 2 years ago. And when it got to the end of the driveway, where Melissa lived in the garage apartment, when it got to the end of the driveway, the postman said, I brought it to the porch. They never did get that package. It was a prophetic, customized gift with a real impact and meaning. Never did find the package. And I thought, what is this? It got to the threshold, but no further. He will interfere with the most extreme things. The U.S. mail. We were all ready to hunt the postman down, and she said, I'm telling you, I brought it and walked it up to the porch. We don't know what happened to it. But that kind of interference, he's attempting to delay and mock and smother hope so you give up. The encouragement that was in there never got to her. But it's not his weapons or his cunning maneuvers that determine the outcome of threshold wars. The victory of wars at the thresholds of your life or your destiny, they're determined by your grip on hope.
That's it.
And refusing to be hopeless. Because that's the only way he can win is if you give up hope and quit.
Yes.
The Shunammite didn't give up hope, and she didn't put her hope in the hands of a haphazard, clumsy servant. She held on to it, and she won. Threshold wars, y'all, go beyond just surviving. They are about fulfillment. They're about your ownership and accomplishment and assignment that God has already predestined for you, preordained. And they're about occupying the God pre-planned, pre-allotted, pre-deeded place that's yours. This is honestly what I picture with the threshold war. There is so much chaos right there at the point that you're about to lift your foot and put it on ground that you occupy, and it becomes yours at the moment you touch it. It's already got your name on the deed. This was already pre-planned. That's where the war is.
Yeah.
Right there.
Come on.
And that's where we've got to be able to step through it, step across it, step on it, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We have got to win threshold wars because they are literally, they determine your legacy. So when you're frustrated enough to spit and you're tired enough to quit, take hope and lift your chin. Lift your chin. That's the only thing to get your sights beyond the chaos to what is really the goal here. Lift your chin, wipe the blood off your sword, and swing again. Because if you have a God purpose, and you do, remember I said if you're here and breathing, you're carrying a God purpose. If you've got a God purpose and you're aware of it, then you're also aware you only have one lifetime to walk it out.
Wow.
So if there's war at the threshold, and there should be many continual thresholds, if there's war there, win it. If you can choose to hope in the Lord, you can win it. And again, you don't hope in what you wanted, you don't hope in what you imagine, you hope in the Lord.
Amen.
And when you hope in Him, you know His wisdom, His power is going to end up, the result's going to be what He wanted. That's why you can hope in Him. Now, this is, if I wanted to say this tonight. If you're on a threshold, if you're in a war, and this is what I kept picturing, to where you're literally standing on that line that we call a threshold, and the door behind you is closing because the season, the task is over, and yet the door in front of you is not obvious and it's not open. And what I saw was people caught, but on that line with the door behind them and the door in front of them, I mean, your nose is raw from trying to find out, what do I do now? This is closing, but what do I do now? If you're in a place like that, you're the first group I want to speak to right now. I want to speak to 3 groups on thresholds tonight. But if you're in that kind of place where you know this is over, but you don't know where to go, would you stand? All right. Because I want to make declarations over you tonight. And I want to release a declaration that's going to make a God difference in your situation. I believe that with all my heart, because this is no accident. My goodness, when you look at the men that are here, you know this is God, because you know this wasn't your plan to be here tonight.
That's right.
This is going to make a God difference in the situation. Clarity's coming. And this is the declaration. I declare a divine stirring of courage in each of you. A divine stirring of courage to believe enough to arise and shake off the heaviness of this situation, shake off the oppression. And the biblical concept of oppression is this: there is no way out. That is not the truth, and that is not going to be the testimony of this time in your life. There is a way out, and it is going to be one of those sovereign surprises that thrills you, and you will be grateful the rest of your life that you were standing there and suddenly God made things plain. Amen. And I declare over you a divine stirring of courage that overcomes memories that are blocking your view and keeping you from seeing the next step, and courage to look again and not assume the same outcome. Even if some things seem the same about what God's about to open to you, don't give up. Don't assume it's going to be the same outcome, because the declaration I'm releasing over you is this: you're going to have the courage to see beyond the logistics, see beyond the details, to the pulse of God in the thing. Yes. That pulse of God is going to be the most outstanding thing in what you're looking at. And thirdly, I declare a divine stirring of clarity and courage to trust God to a level of trust you have never walked in. And you actually have a confidence that gives you rest right now, because the circumstances are going to change and the plan of God is going to become obvious. I will give you this. I was on the sofa taking a nap one evening, one afternoon, and the Lord woke me up. He called my name, and I said, "What is it, Lord?" He said, "Kathy, your confidence in me becomes my access to you." And I sat there and went over and over that. And he showed me like standing in this huge white cylinder that I knew it went to heaven. I could not see the top. He said, "There's nothing on these walls, no doubt, no fear, no memories, no experiences that can the least bit hinder my answer coming straight to you." He said, "This is what confidence in me looks like. It's an open corridor, and it gives me access to everything around you." So I declare over you a trust in God like you have never had before, that actually allows you to rest in the process, because the victory is going to be a thing of gratitude in you for the rest of your life. And be it unto you. You're graced right here tonight by God's appointment. Right now. And I love this. Let me read this scripture out. I believe it was the Message, Proverbs 13:12. "Unrelenting disappointment leaves you heartsick, but a sudden good break can turn life around." I declare over you a sudden good break. It is done. Hallelujah. Now a second group is this. If you're at a threshold that's under siege because of timing and delay, and you would like ministry, I'd like for you to come over here. And I'm putting Melissa and a couple of the prayer team over here to minister to you if you would like ministry. If what you're fighting is delay, and it's about to delay the life out of you, please feel free to come over here, and Melissa, and then we'll meet you here. The third group over here, if you are in a place of outliving betrayal or failure or injustice, so you can move forward, I'd like for you to come over here. I want to minister to you with Pastor Kathy. So if either scenario fits the threshold war you're in, either out of fighting timing and delay and it keeps working against you, or if you're still coming to a place of outliving betrayal or failure or injustice, I'd like for you to come over here. Let's all stand. And all of you, if you need to leave, you're free to do so. Like Pastor said earlier, you are very free to do what needs to be done. And this side over here is time and delay. This side's outliving betrayal and failure or injustice. And let me, any of you that need to leave, you're welcome to stay. But if you need to leave, let me bless you this way. And I'll tell you what releases in blessing. I bless you tonight because the blessing of God releases the power and the permission to prosper in His will concerning you. I bless you tonight to prosper in the plans of God. And folks, I've never sensed in my life what I sense now. That I'm talking about a dimension that's new. The results are going to be different. There's just a whole lot that's going to shock us, but it's His sovereignty, and so be it. Amen and amen. So if you need ministry in either area,